just talk skills, 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 and developing those skills. In the UK, the government says young people are set to benefit from 120,000 new training opportunities as part of what they call a radical skills revolution, giving them the chance to develop skills where they're most needed across the workforce to rebuild Britain. Now, the measures are backed by a £3 billion apprenticeship budget, which the government says will open up opportunities for young people to succeed in careers that the country vitally needs to prosper, which includes brickies, carpenters, and healthcare support workers. Now, London's congestion charge could rise by 20% next year under new proposals in its first hike since 2020. Transport for London, TfL, has started a consultation on behalf of London Mayor Sadiq Khan to increase the daily charge from £15 to £18 from January 2026 if it is approved. In other news in the UK, Nissan Motor Company, which is a Japanese company, is facing a huge loan repayment next year and is seeking to raise about yen 1 trillion, which is about $7 billion, from debt and asset sales to keep operations on track, according to internal documents seen by Bloomberg News. The struggling Japanese automaker plans to issue as much as 630 billion yen in convertible securities and bonds, including high-yielding US dollar and euro notes. Still on the same matter, Nissan also plans to take out a £1 billion syndicated loan guaranteed by the UK Export Finance. Now, Nissan operates Britain's largest automaker hub in Sunderland. In addition, Nissan is seeking to sell part of its 15% stake it owns in Renault and the equity interest it has in battery maker AESC Group Limited, as well as plants in South Africa and Mexico. Joining us from the UK to discuss further is economist Shaun Richards. Shaun, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to start with the apprenticeship program. What do you make of the price tag of £3 billion?
Well, that's a little awkward, but if I may, I can almost hear my father calling me here, because you see, my father was a surveyor and he did his training at the Brixton School of Building, for those unaware, in South London. And he argued pretty much throughout his life that the UK needed to do more of this. And obviously his interest was in construction, so he was thinking of plasterers, bricklayers, that sort of thing, as a way of building the UK economy up through skilled workers. And these things are skills, because you see, he had a plastering business and at times struggled to get people that were really good at it. And it isn't a business that ebbs and flows. There's always good times, bad times that swing around. And let me throw in something else that would help this for a sort of small business owner like him, was that he absolutely hated the banks. Why? Because when things were going well, he could have all the money he wanted. When they were a bit harder, he couldn't get any money at all. So exactly the wrong way round. But back to the apprenticeship thing. So from my father's voice, I have to be a big fan of this. And it is an area where the UK struggled. For those unaware, we used to have a thing called polytechnics, which were, I'm not sure what you'd call it, a sort of like third or fourth tier thing, where people learnt these sort of things, what you would consider trades, perhaps, rather than a profession. And there's been a change in recent times that these become universities. And I think we've lost our way. So this is a hopeful sign. The only thing I can say against it is, well, actually two things. One is, are our politicians telling the truth? They don't very often. And secondly, the UK has issues with its amount of borrowing at the minute. So the 3 billion I bother about on the other side, as in, can we actually afford it?
Gotcha. Is the program an admission of a shortfall of skilled workers in the UK? Because last time we had you on the show, some times past, we talked about the need for more teachers and also more healthcare workers for the NHS. So is this program an admission of a shortfall of skilled workers?
Yeah, and it's across the thing. For example, one of the things of this government is that they said that they would build 1.5 million houses. Well, then we get to the issue of who's actually going to build them. Do we have enough people? That leads into the immigration debate, because a lot of people have come in from abroad to do the various bits of building. And the stereotype is from Poland. They're not all from there, but that just gives you a general idea. And then how is all that going to work? More recently in the UK, the issues come up to healthcare workers, because pressures come on to governments to tighten immigration. Now the healthcare sector is saying it's going to be short of workers, and so on. So there is quite a struggle here as to A, what we want to do, and then B, how we would do it.
Gotcha. In your view, is the UK also prioritizing skills in fields like software engineering, chip manufacturing, and other areas of technology? I know that Keir Starmer has talked a lot about making the UK a hub for artificial intelligence. So, I mean, brickies, carpenters, healthcare workers are very important. But what's your view on what's being done on the tech side?
Well, that is a sort of difficult one again, because you see, in many ways, the UK has been very successful in these sort of areas. It's geographic, some of it. There was a lot of talk in the area just north of the city of London, where there were a lot of these sort of businesses, but that didn't really have anything to do with government at all. And if we move on to another issue here, which is some of these AI things require a lot of electricity. And the UK is short of electricity due to the fact that we've gone into unreliable renewables. So there's lots of different strands of thought in the same thing. Yes, it's a great idea. B, the UK in many respects is actually quite good at that sort of thing. But the actual government intervention, I'm not sure it'll help, because the trouble is governments are always behind events, aren't they?
Yeah, that is correct. I want to move to the congestion charge in London and the considerations by Transport for London, TfL, of a hike. What do you make of that proposal, or the considerations?
It's just another type of tax. For those unaware, Transport for London's been short of money. Some of this is pandemic driven because people didn't go on the tube and buses and so on after the pandemic as people worked from home more. Actually, some of the more recent numbers are saying that revenue's stronger. I saw some reports the other day that around the city of London, the tube stations there, business is now much more normal. So more people have gone back to work. That's one factor. But in the end, this is just simply another form of tax. For example, another way they spread this out was they spread it out to me where I live. It came down to South London, which is something they said they wouldn't do. And there's nothing as permanent as a tax, is there? Never goes away. For those unaware, income tax in the UK was introduced in the Napoleonic Wars to finance that. And it was a temporary measure. So temporary, in fact, it's still here.
That is correct. So the last hike was in 2020, and you've mentioned COVID and the impact. But they're suggesting that it could now rise annually from 2026. So I guess that falls in line with what you just said about the tax sticking around now that they're looking at raising it annually.
Yes, and there've been other factors here. I mean, I got rid of my own car, actually. I didn't use it a lot. And there were things around emission charges and so on. So to have a car here has become a lot more expensive. Where I live, the number of cars has shrunk a lot. Might sound silly, but you can actually park in the road now that you never used to be able to. And I think that's part of their problem, actually, because people in general have got rid of their cars. They're getting less revenue in. So there's an element here of they're like a dog chasing its own tail, except there's a catch. Dogs have enough sense to stop doing this. Politicians much less so.
That might be the caption for our YouTube clip for this interview. But Shaun, you mentioned something very interesting. You got rid of your car. I can't do that here in Lagos. I cannot get rid of my car because our public transportation system is not as reliable as yours in the UK. We played a special on Los Angeles and how they were trying to build out subways, to spread out across the city of Los Angeles, which is really congested and car-centric. So on that point, you saying you got rid of your car, there are proposing discounts to these taxes in the UK to incentivize electric vehicles. I guess, are you seeing less electric vehicles? What's your assessment of the electric vehicle adoption in the UK?
Well, there are various strands. Let me give you a personal experience. One of the things is, even say crossing the road, you have to be more careful now because you don't hear the car anymore. Not in the way that you used to anyway. But there are various problems here. Back to my point about electricity earlier that I mentioned. You see, if the UK is going to swing to, say, an all-EV fleet, we don't have the electricity generation for it. And a lot of what we're basing it on is unreliable. Just to give you an example, I do the wind numbers every day. And this week started quite strongly. In fact, Monday was fantastic because it was a bank holiday here and we had loads of wind and so on and prices were cheap. But it's pretty much halved today. And so what then on a day like that, when people want to charge their EV? So there's all sorts of issues on the electricity side. And then they're expensive. They're expensive to buy. How are people going to afford that? That's another issue. And then there's another factor. It may seem trivial, but they're forever repairing the roads now. And I wonder if that's because cars are now heavier, the roads can't take it. And of course, that's the batteries in the cars, isn't it? So there's a lot of factors here that roll in. So the official pressure is yes, yes, yes. But in other ways, it's more awkward. We may end up, you could end up with a lot less cars, as in they're the only people that can afford them.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that nugget. That's a very, very enlightening observation you shared with us. While we're still talking about vehicles, Nissan in particular reports about it wants to raise about £7 billion, and then they're also looking at a syndicated loan of about £1 billion that will be backed by the UK. What do you make of that development?
Well, there's various things here. If we look at Japan, borrowing's got a lot more expensive. Now, from our point of view in the UK, for you in Nigeria, the numbers might not seem much, but for the Japanese they are, because they're the place that held to negative interest rates and in many cases bond yields for the longest. So now it's expensive. They're now having to pay 3%. Again, doesn't sound a lot, does it, for us? But for them it is. Now that's hitting Nissan. They probably got used to borrowing for not much at all, maybe zero at times. Now they're actually having to pay, so it's getting awkward. If we move that now to the UK, I know I said earlier that the UK government's struggling, but in a way, we probably should be supporting someone like Nissan. This happened in Margaret Thatcher's time when she was Prime Minister. I think this was the introduction of getting Japanese car companies to come to the UK. And in general, it's been a success. Mostly, they've been better at it than we have, frankly. So that's worked. And it was also something that came up in the Brexit argument, because Nissan was supposed to leave in a nutshell, was the argument on the Remain side. Well, it's still here. In many respects, it's thriving. But in other areas, here's the awkward bit. Of course, now the Trump tariffs have come in, haven't they? Places have been hit. The UK's managed by hook or by crook to get itself some sort of amelioration of that. So maybe it's in favour again. My point is, and actually it was my point all around the Brexit thing, that it's always presented as being one thing or another, but there's loads of nuance and other issues, and things are always changing. All the times I'm on here, we're discussing some things that are very different to before, and that's the life we now live in. So hopefully Nissan will keep going in Sunderland. That'll be a success. And the UK does need some form of manufacturing, so we need to support it. Back to the undercut, kind of my theme for the day. The UK has a problem that its electricity is very expensive. That's another factor here. So we might almost be subsidising our own electricity prices. A little awkward, that, isn't it?
Fantastic. Shaun Richards, it's always a pleasure talking to you about these matters in the UK, because you shed so much light on them. I want to appreciate the time you've given us today to talk about the congestion charge, Nissan getting that syndicated loan, and of course the other issues around the UK, particularly with the £3 billion price tag for the apprenticeship program. Shaun Richards, economist in the UK, thank you so much for your time.